What is up, and welcome back to the Fortman Podcast. I am your host, which I'm the host every time, so don't know why I said that, but I love to have in-person guests with me, and this weekend we have LO Conference, which when we're filming this, but when this airs, it will have passed, and I'm sure it was an amazing time. But I'm so thankful to have Nick Caine joining me. And Nick, you're my second Australian guest that I've had on the podcast, so I'm really excited to.
We're really lifting the quality of the podcast. You get enough Australians in here, and all of a sudden, everything becomes classier.
That's true. That's true. You know that I literally, if I could have one accent, it would be an Australian accent.
Give us a trial.
Hello, mate.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Mate, I think mate's the only Australian thing I know.
Yeah, mate and bloke.
Bloke.
It's like, hey, what are you blokes up to? It's like universal for guys.
Is that an appropriate word? Bloke?
Yeah, bloke. It's like, hey, what are you blokes up to?
I thought bloke was more of a demeaning thing, but it's not.
No, it's it's generally amongst your mates.
Yeah.
So but it refers to guys.
Yeah.
The equivalent used to be Sheila for girls, but that would get you punched out.
That would get you punched out. We're good to know. Well, I've actually.
You can stick with blokes.
I've never thought about blokes. So when I talk to you, I'll refer to you as a bloke. And
yeah.
So what I say, we're blokes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we're friends.
Like an ultimate compliment would be, yeah, he's a really good bloke.
Okay. Cool. So he's like a really good dude.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. Awesome. Well, if you're listening to this and you're like, who in the world has this amazing voice and he sounds like a movie narrator? This is Nick Caine, and he's the husband of Christine Caine, which I'm sure you have heard of Christine and maybe watched and listened to a ton of things she's done. And it's really cool because we are similar and we're different. We're both married to, very dominant women who go out and travel and preach the word. And maybe when I met Sadie and married into it, I had known that's what she did. What's the, so obviously you're married to Christine. What's the, when y'all got married, was she always the way that she is now? And how do you kind of help her with all the ministry things that she does?
Yeah. Chris, so I got saved late. So I got saved at 25, ended up at Bible college at about 27. So Chris by that stage was already running large youth events, evangelistic youth events around Australia. So she was already preaching and teaching and doing all that sort of stuff. And everybody knew Christine. She was a passionate, fiery Greek evangelist, and she was always at 100%. And she came into our class one day and did a guest lecture on community-based evangelism. And instead of being sort of in her sort of community sort of jeans and sloppy shirt, whatever, she was all glammed up because she'd been to some community meeting. And it was like, okay, I'm sold. I want one of them, which was great, except she was full on and passionate and absolutely, totally committed to the call of God. So I had to kind of worm my way into her life. I kept on appearing everywhere she was. And then she would ask soft, romantic questions, probably just like Sadie. It's like, okay, so you're cute. The sex would be great, but I'm doing more single for God than most married people I know. So why should I take a chance on you? So my background's sales, so I'm not quite sure what I said, but it worked. But then we've always been partners in ministry. Initially, I was in sales and she was continuing to do her youth stuff around Australia. When we started to travel internationally, we made the commitment that, okay, we'd do it as a family and go from there. And we are about as different a personality as you could possibly imagine. Christine is Greek and everything is full on. Everything's 110%. When we first got married, I would wake up and she would have 20 questions for me. And when we were first married, I would try to answer them. And then I said, no, bed is not the place that I answer any questions. There are a couple of things that happen in bed. One of them sleep. The other one also starts with S.
Another S.
And apart from that, leave it alone. It's like no questions to a coffee.
Well, yeah. No questions other than the other two.
Other than hey. But we've always if we get ministry right, then she writes teachers and mothers. She's the most inspirational person that we have. She's obviously charismatic, gifted, anointed to lead and all that sort of stuff. But she doesn't like having to deal with the details. She's better at details than I am. She's just her natural sort of perfectionist gift allows her when she gets into it to be better at the details, but then she gets off the big picture. So if we get it right, she writes teachers and mothers. So we take care of all the administrative stuff, and then at the end of it, like we had an all staff meeting this week with all of our team all across the world, and we unleash her at the end to inspire everybody and get everybody ready to take on the world.
Yeah, man, that is so cool. I did not know that about the about the Bible college story. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Well, I mean, like you said, I can easily see how that's kind of evolved over the last. Y'all been doing that for the last 20 plus years together. 27 years. Did you ever? Was that ever something early on where you, like, maybe struggled with that of like, because I've had so many people say to me, and it really doesn't bother me. But obviously, if Sadie's the one that's, speaking, I'm more so backstage, so she's clearly getting more, attention or whatever, because, she was well known before we got married. I was not, But there's people can assume that would just, make you feel less than, or that would make you feel intimidated, or that make just the insecurity that as a man that you could feel like that of having your wife kind of in that spotlight, I guess you could say. Was that ever something that you kind of walked that early on in marriage, where you are traveling through Australia and internationally, and she's the one doing it, and you're just like, you're really there supporting her?
Yeah. It's never been an issue to me. We would go to pastors' conference, and particularly in some places in Europe where she would speak and everybody would be inspired and motivated, and then we'd go to a green room and they'd ignore her and talk to me. And I'm sure you've had people go, do you want to do it? Do you want to speak? Why don't you speak?
Yeah, everywhere we go.
And my answer is, why would you use a BB gun if you've got a 12 gauge? Yeah. She's a much better tool for that job than I am.
Yeah.
And if I was up there speaking, you would all be asleep. And she's up there speaking and you're ready to charge hell with a water pistol. So let her do what she's great at, and I'll do what I'm great at. And if we partner like that, it may not look like it has traditionally looked in some aspects of the church, but we get to achieve, we multiply the effectiveness, because we need to motivate and build the church not only with guys but with women as well.
Yeah,
they've got a whole different set of call and a whole different set of abilities, and they're 50% of the population. Yeah. So they're 50% of the workforce and 50% of the people that we need to reach. So let's use all the tools in the toolbox, and let's use them right. Like, hammer's not always the best tool.
Yeah, that's true. Because like just like you said, people will say things like that, and I'm always like, I mean, if you have a side room with 5 people, I'll go do that. But I'm not about to go speak to
I'm with you.
Tens of thousands of people. That's just not my thing. And like you said, Sadie's clearly more gifted at that than I am. But I don't. Even from a gifting standpoint, I don't enjoy that. I mean, it's just that sense of like, I don't feel like that's what I'm called to do. Like,
absolutely.
I don't feel like I'm very articulate with things from a standpoint of like crafting a message and the punchline here and like just how to make it all come together. I'm more of just a one-on-one, hey, let's go through this evangelism and discipleship and actually how are you living your life rather than crafting a message. I just don't feel like that's my gifting. Yes, when people say that, I'm like, well, like you said, I'm not, Sadie's more gifted at it than I am. So why would I be up there? Because she's, clearly more effective. So
absolutely. I'm the same as you. It's like, I lead our staff, so I have to craft messages to communicate culture and communicate direction and communicate vision. But that's within my tight sphere. Put me on a stage and I'm just completely out of my depth. It's like you. Yeah. It's not what I feel like I'm called to do. It's not what I feel is the best use of my time.
Yeah.
Because for me, like everybody, if you're going to be on a stage, then you really want to do it well, which means that it takes me a massive amount of time to prepare something that I think is actually relevant to the people that I'm going to speak to and figure out how to articulate that, how to put that together. And that takes me away from what I'm called to do, which is to lead teams and make things happen on a practical level. So I'm really happy to chat with you, but I'm really happy that there's not hundreds of people sitting there in the room.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because there's so many things that can make you overthink things, right? If someone says that of, you should speak, and then you're like, well, it's not really my gifting, then it's like, not that they're saying it, but you can imply it to mean like, well, you're not trusting the Spirit of because for me, it's like, if I were to go preach a message, I don't have great memorization skills, which I know a lot of pastors, a lot of people preach just memorizing their stuff, and that's just not my gifting. But then it's like, but if you get up there and if you're filled with the Spirit, the Spirit's going to speak. So it's like that. You're like, but could I do it? Am I called to? I don't feel called to it, but am I doubting something that God has placed? I just think there's so many. I just think there's language in it that can just be confusing and just no, I don't enjoy that. I think I'm called to that. So let's just leave it at that. I like when Sadie preaches a message, we go through it 100 times at the house. I like doing that. I like tweaking things here and helping her here, adding scripture here and telling her maybe how I think it could be better or whatever. And then she goes and do it. That's it. I don't like being on the stage doing that.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And I think that it's the choice is to not allow other people's stereotypes or expectations to affect how you live your life. You have the ability to hear from God for you and for your family, and what's going to work best in the dynamic of your family and your ministry and what God's called you to. And it's great when other people have opinions, and sometimes it's designed. They feel like it's designed to encourage you, but I don't think we need to live under their expectations, because otherwise you get a different set of expectations from every person that you run into, and they'll have you should do this and you should do that and you should do the other. And it's like, well, that's really a good idea. Maybe you should do that.
If you see anything I do on social media, or if you followed this podcast for a while now, you've heard me talk about AG1. AG1 is something that I love to drink every morning before I go work out. And if I don't work out that morning, I still love to drink it sometime during the day. It's a daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports whole body health. And I gave AG1 a try because I hate taking pills. I hate taking vitamins. I think it tastes delicious. It helps improve my digestion. It helps support my sleep. It gives me better moods. And I think it tastes delicious. It also helps with my hair, my skin, and my nails. And in just one scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and whole food source ingredients of high quality that give me major benefits like gut and mood support. And AG1 was designed with ease of mind so that you can live healthier and better without having to do a lot. It's seriously the healthiest thing that you can do in just under a minute. So I take a bunch of different things where you can just mix one scoop of AG1 and put it in however much water you want, and you can drink it, and it tastes delicious. And then one of my favorite things about AG1 is the travel packs that you get with them. I travel a lot, and a lot of times places I go, there's no healthy options anywhere, or if I'm traveling in the airport or whatever, I love to bring these travel packs with me. I can fit them in a to-go bag. I can fit them in my backpack or even a DOP kit. They're super small. and they fit literally wherever. And I love to bring them because I need health on the road. And like I said, it tastes delicious. So I want to drink something good on the road. And not only do I love AG1, but even so many people I see on social media, AG1 is like people's favorite thing ever. And I have gotten many people on it. John David from the Duck Hall Room loves it. My parents are on it. I've got my brother and my neighbor on it. And everyone that has tried it loved it. And they say that it's the best nutritional drink that they've tried. So if you want to take ownership of your health, try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/Huff. That's drinkag1.com/Huff. Go check it out. Well, I want to ask you because, you talked about traveling internationally earlier, because I would honestly say y'all travel more than anybody that I know. And I think Satan knows. I think y'all travel more than anybody we know. I'll say that. What have you learned the most from traveling all around the world?
That people, despite their differences, that some of the basic needs of people are pretty much the same. People are desperate to find meaning. They want to look after their family. They are looking for purpose in their life. So people, the more cultures you see, you see some that are so different. But then when you get to know the people within that, they actually have so many common needs, so many common desires. And that's where the gospel reaches all cultures, because everybody's got the same needs, and Jesus has come and filled all those core needs as far as spiritual, but even the physical. People are trying to look after their family. People are trying to figure out how do I keep a roof over my head? How do I educate my kids? How do I transmit my morals and ethos and the way I want my kids to live? How do I get them to live that way? So I think that even though culturally we are so different, if you go from here to Asia, to the Middle East, to Africa, you get so many things which are quirky, cool, or quirky, oh, I'm glad I don't live in the middle of that, type stuff. Like I was in South Africa a while ago, and somebody said, oh, so-and-so is going to be offline today because they stole the transformer box for his community. And I looked at him and thought, that's odd. It says, oh no, it happens all the time. People steal the power lines because they want to steal the copper. And I was like, so how do you steal a power line? So like, oh, you drive into the power line with a car and you knock it over, and you knock over a couple other power lines, and then you just pull them apart. It's like, okay, I'm kind of glad that's not my day-to-day reality. It's just not. So you see so many different things. Yeah. But you realize that people at their core are pretty much the same.
Yeah. Because how many weeks out of the year, how many days, like, would you say a year that on average you'll travel?
We travel probably 250 plus days a year.
And that's like everywhere. That's not just like a little hop and a skip there. That's
no.
All across the world.
I did a trip earlier in the year where I did 11 countries in 15 days.
Was that after Passion we were talking about, where you were about to go?
Yeah.
Can you just say some of the places that you were going? It was crazy.
Went to Poland, Ukraine, England, Spain, Cambodia, Thailand, Australia, and somewhere else.
That was just crazy.
So it was a night in each place. Basically, I slept in the same bed once. Where when we were in the Ukraine, we had driven from Poland up to the Ukraine, and the next day we were basically going up to the front.
Yeah.
So we stayed about 2 hours from the front, so we could drive up, be there for the day, and then get back after dark. So we didn't really want to sleep up there.
Yeah. Do you find it difficult, like, because I think that's, people always love a talk. I mean, I think we live in a culture where it's like people love their routines and to be consistent and, you know, all those things. But yet if you're traveling 250 plus days, there's really not much consistency or continuity to it. How do you, is that, like, is that ever a struggle for you of, you know, like when you are home, like it's hard to feel planted kind of thing, or how do you?
I love being at home. It is a highlight. So home is always a prize. Home with kids, home with just your own furniture, being able to get up in the morning, make a cup of coffee, sit down, have a quiet time in my chair, in my corner, is just like absolute bliss. And there's so much fun at home. So we don't travel because we're addicted to travel. We travel because we're addicted to the mission and trying to do what we believe that God's called us to do. But no 2 days are ever the same because our world involves people in all sorts of different places. You're scheduling meetings at odd hours. So we like I said, we did a sort of an all-staff meeting this week. Which we do once a quarter. So it was 7 a.m. for us, 9 a.m. Central Time, go Central Time, 10 o'clock East Coast Time, and then it's 5 or 6 o'clock in London, 8 o'clock in Greece, 11 o'clock in Thailand, 2 a.m. in Sydney. And so everybody's up and on the phone and chatting away and all that sort of stuff. So the day-to-day stuff is always different. So I get up in the morning and I normally talk to Europe in the morning and Asia in the afternoon. Except when I travel to Europe or Asia, it spins everything around.
It spins everything around.
So I called somebody in Australia one point. I was in Australia and I called one of the team in Europe, and I'm chatting away as per normal. He's been really nice, and he says like, "Hey Nick, is there anything particularly important that we need to talk about, or could we talk about this later in the day because it's 4 o'clock in the morning here?"
That is so funny.
And I go, sorry, I'm out of whack.
Yeah.
But no, go back to bed.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about all these different time zones, and not only, you know, like we talked about earlier, not only do you just support Christine and all she's doing, but I mean, you practically run A21, which is a huge organization in multiple tens of countries and continents, and you do, not that there's, how many, there's 7 continents, right? Oh, yeah, that's not 10 plus continents.
Yeah, I think there's 7 continents.
I don't know. I'm so bad at geography. But I mean, you do so much outside of just helping maybe Christine prep a message or help support her in that. You know, you do so much stuff. Can you kind of explain what all you do with A21, where y'all are, and maybe the birthplace of it and the origin of it, and really what all y'all are doing, because it's such an incredible mission.
Thanks. Yeah, A21, our goal is to end slavery everywhere forever. And so we're currently operating in 19 cities in 15 countries, and where we have team. And we do everything from trafficking prevention and awareness and education to working with police to see people rescued from trafficking, and then providing aftercare services and legal services after we've had people rescued. So have been a part of the conviction of hundreds of traffickers. It's seen thousands of people rescued from trafficking right across the world. Everything from 18-month-old kids being trafficked for sex to 75-year-old men being trafficked for forced labor in different countries. And so my job is to keep all that running. I manage the staff, have a great team, executive team, who do operations, finance, development, and HR, and we work to try and manage all of the people in all the different countries and figure out the different rules for employees in all the different countries.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, 15 countries. That's just crazy. Can you kind of give some, for those listening, just some statistics on actually how real slavery still is and how real sex trafficking still is?
The latest statistics would say that there's more people in slavery today than ever before.
Wow.
The latest statistics would be that there's 52 million people actively enslaved today, and that the human trafficking industry is a $150 billion a year industry. So it's the fastest growing crime on the earth today. It's growing faster than the trafficking in guns or drugs. And it is across the whole world, as far as there isn't a country that you could go to that it doesn't exist in some form. And it exists here in the US. One of the things we do here in the US is try and educate people on how to avoid being trafficked, how to spot trafficking. And one of the things we do in that is a curriculum which is all the way through K through 12. And it's taught by teachers as part of their health and social sciences curriculum. And we've got a new version of that coming out at the moment. And we were just beta testing that at the end of last year, the last academic year. As an Australian, my year is January to December. In America, I've got to realise that it's like August to July. So just at the end of last academic year, we were testing it. And a couple of stories is a young elementary girl went to her teacher and said, "Miss, that's happening to me." And the teacher says, "Oh, what do you mean?" Says, "Well, we don't have very much money. And my dad told me that the way that I could help pay the family bills is if he took pictures of me naked and he sold them on the internet." And so because the teacher had just gone through the whole lesson with what's safe and unsafe, because it's all age appropriate, the kid was able to self-identify saying, "Hey, that's happening to me." And the teacher was able to then know how to contact law enforcement. In the same week, an older group of girls were in a class, and it was all on grooming and how people are groomed over the internet and the behaviours of people who are grooming somebody to get involved in trafficking. And one of the girls at the end of the class goes to the teacher and says, "Miss, that's happening in our school right now." Teacher goes, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, Sally, who wasn't here, is meeting a guy at the airport, and he's been talking to all of us girls about modelling jobs. And he hasn't seen us, but he's already offered us jobs, and we're supposed to meet him this afternoon." So they were able to get FBI involved. So again, because the teacher was educated and the student was educated, when the teacher called local police, they were able to refer it straight through to the FBI. FBI were able to get involved and see that guy arrested, and none of those girls get trafficked. So from our perspective, we would rather educate people and help them to avoid getting trafficked than even having to engage to get them rescued and restored.
Yeah.
The less people that get trafficked, the better.
When I was in middle school, I broke my nose. Absolutely shattered it. I was playing baseball, turned on an inside fastball, bam, thing shattered my nose. Had to have surgery, have a deviated septum, so many things. All that to say, it was a lot more money than my family was expecting. And it was unexpected. I knew that I was going to have surgery, but we were not expecting the cost that it was going to entail to get my nose fixed. And just like that, when a medical bill comes up, the last thing that you want to worry about is how you're going to pay for it. And that's where Samaritan Ministries comes in. Samaritan Ministries is a community of Christians paying for each other's medical bills. This is not insurance, it's assurance that you're part of a healthcare shared community where members care for one another spiritually and financially when a medical need arises. So here's how it works. You can join anytime. Your medical bills are sent to Samaritan Ministries, and they notify fellow members to pray for you and send money directly to you for your shareable bills. Your medical bills get paid, and you'll find comfort and prayers and encouragement from fellow members. And when another member has a need, you'll do the same for them. This isn't a faceless company. It's an opportunity for ministry. And what I love about Samaritan Ministries is that they have no network restrictions. So you can have total freedom to choose whatever doctors, hospitals, and treatments are best for you and for your family. So when a medical emergency comes up, you don't have to give a second thought to whether the hospital is a network. Samaritan Ministry members also get access to exclusive health resources to help keep medical costs low. That saves you time, and it also saves you money. And Samaritan Ministries is a biblical solution to healthcare where we can bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And it's affordable because they're focused on ministry, not profit. So join 80,000 Christian households across the nation sharing $30 million in medical needs every month. Become part of this community today at SamaritanMinistries.org/Huff. That's SamaritanMinistries.org/Huff. Join today. Yeah, no, for sure. That is just crazy. I mean, you hear some of these stories like that, and I think so often we were kind of talking about this in the car. I think so often we can think in the U.S. like that doesn't happen here, but isn't the U.S. like the lead, like one of the leading countries?
Yeah, it's a country where there is lots of active trafficking cases, obviously traffickers don't report the statistics, so it's kind of hard to get accurate numbers. But there's a major amount of trafficking here in the US of both domestic victims for sex and foreign victims for both sex and labour. We do a whole part of our model is whenever you have somebody who's vulnerable, then it will lead to exploitation. And at the moment we have lots of immigrants here who are incredibly vulnerable. They don't have any money. They don't have a social network. They're looking for opportunity, and that there are then people who will come and offer opportunity, which turns into trafficking. We had a case just recently where a girl had come to the country, was desperately looking for work, was told, yep, we've got a job for you. Get dressed up. You're going to meet your employers tonight, and it's going to be fantastic. Best job ever. She got all dressed up to meet the boss and got taken out and put on the street, told that if she didn't service men, then she'd get killed. That is not at all an uncommon scenario, where generally people are, one of the biggest things that we see is people are trafficked on the basis of the promise of a better life and a better opportunity, and we're going to give you a particular job, and then it's like, oh, no, that job's not available, but you owe us money because we've helped you get here, so now you have to do this, or guys recruiting girls. We had a situation where a highly intelligent girl, master's educated, successful interior design business, went away on holidays with her new boyfriend, walks into a hotel room, and there's a guy standing in the hotel room. And she looked at him and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, this is our room, and what are you doing here?" And she goes, well, he said to her, "I own you." And her quote-unquote boyfriend gave her a push. He walked out, and his job was literally just to recruit girls and bring them to this other guy, and he would then use them for prostitution.
That is crazy.
But again, smart, well-educated, but conned along the way.
Yeah.
And then the use of fear and intimidation, threats to your family. It's like, I know where your family lives. So if you don't behave, then I can beat up your mum. Your mum shops at Walmart on 12th Street. Your little brother goes to such and such an elementary school. And that fear and intimidation is very real for people. And it's cheaper than drugs.
Yeah. That's crazy. What got y'all into this? Like, was there a story? Like, was there a moment early on where y'all kind of identified that this is what you wanted to really dedicate much of y'all's lives to?
Yes and no. There was a moment where it was like, somebody needs to do something about that. And it kind of got out of hand as far as the amount of work. Because when we first came across it, we were already traveling. We were doing a lot of work with church planners and evangelism right across the world. But we came to Europe, and it was years ago when a little kid called Madeline had been taken in Portugal. And then we were traveling to Greece, and we saw all these pictures of missing kids. And we had just had our youngest daughter, Sophia. And at the airport in Greece, while we were waiting for our bags, there's all these missing kids. And there was one of them was called Sophia. And so Chris is like, when I say just had a baby, it's like 6 weeks before. So she's emotional. She's emotional.
Yeah.
And she burst into tears. It's like, oh, well, we got to do something about these missing kids. So we go out and ask the people who were with it, like, what's the story with all these missing kids? And said, oh, they're victims of trafficking. And we said, what's trafficking? And so then we started to find out more about it. And our initial goal was that Chris would be a spokeswoman for some trafficking organisation, and we'd get all of our church planners to partner with them and give a local expression to mission for them. And then as we started to look for an organisation to partner with, we couldn't find anybody who was having much success. I met with dozens of organisations and asked one woman to tell me about some of their success stories. And she looked at me and said, oh, you don't have success stories in this. So it's like, okay, well, we've been telling people how to lead and build and succeed in ministry for years. It's probably time to put up or shut up. So at that point, we thought we would do a shelter in Greece, and that would be it. And so it was a case of ready, fire, aim. There's a need. We're going to meet it. We're off and running. And then we had the office in Greece, and we'd hired a guy to lead that office. And then we're mapping out, okay, how are we going to find victims, and how are we going to help them, and who are we going to need, and where are they going to come from? So it was an evolution. And it was probably once we already had that office in Greece that we realised that we would have to do stuff in other countries to support people who were going back to other countries. And that also involved having to change laws and getting police to enforce laws. Because in Greece, one of the lowest statistics is that 50% of sexually active men in Greece use a prostitute once a month or more often. So it's a big part of their culture. So just convincing police and society and even people in church that there was trafficking in Greece and that it should be stopped has been a huge walk.
Yeah. So how old is Sophia?
Sophia is 17.
17. So this was 17 years ago when y'all were in Greece and saw that?
Yeah.
So when did... So A21's been going on for how many years?
15 years.
15
it's our 15th birthday this year.
Yeah. So you started the shelter in Greece, and then that kind of birthed into A21. Is there not something like... I mean, just because I don't know all the ins and outs of, organizations and government. And is there... Like, to what extent is like legislation and like government involved in, like, I mean, if it's a $152 billion business, like, granted, there's so many underground things in that, but to what extent, why can't governments throughout the world engage in it maybe more than they are? Is it just sin and just worldliness?
It's partially sin and worldliness, partially it's ignorance. The thing that you have to remember about organised crime is that they're organised.
Yeah.
So they package what they do carefully and have lots of risk mitigation measures involved. But yes, there's also legislation, and then there's making people aware of legislation. The Ukraine only passed a law to make slavery illegal about 4 years ago.
Wow.
So it was something that wasn't illegal, because nobody had written a law to make it illegal in Ukraine. And there are better laws across Europe, but then getting people to recognise and apply those laws. So anytime you have new law, you've got to teach that to the police. And we're fortunate here in the US that we've got great law enforcement. They're motivated. They're reasonably well compensated, so they're less likely to be bribed. The average guy who puts a badge and a gun on every day is trying to do the right thing and has done it because they want to protect people. But that guy who gets in a cruiser and is driving the streets is responsible for all of the different laws. So he's got to know the traffic law, he's got to know the burglary laws, he's going to have some knowledge of vice when that comes to drugs and alcohol and all that sort of stuff. So to then educate them on what are the latest laws, what are the latest methods of trafficking, it's hard work. So we do a lot of work to educate law enforcement and educate professionals on where they can see trafficking. And so we're on the National Anti-Trafficking Hotline in Greece, Bulgaria, South Africa, and Spain. And half of the work of those teams is to educate law enforcement on what trafficking looks like, so that they can be proactive in those situations. And we'll often get calls to our hotlines from law enforcement that says, hey, we've got this situation and it looks like trafficking to us. Can you walk us through the criteria that will allow us to have a degree of certainty? And then you've got to try and you've got to get it through their legal system. And sometimes the legal systems have got all sorts of hurdles, which make getting convictions of those cases hard. So I think some places there is bad law, some places there is bad law enforcement, and some places bad education. So it's a combination.
Yeah.
Like the US government does a report where they rate each country each year. Either tier 1, you've got good laws and you're tending to enforce them. Tier 2, bit iffy. Tier 2, watch list, extremely iffy. And tier 3, it's a really bad situation.
Yeah.
So it's a whole set of circumstances that are around that. And it's our job to try and move people all up to tier 1.
So with all those things, I mean, that's, in the call we were talking about all these difficult and hard things that you've had to see from like 18 months old to 75-year-old men. Like there's a lot of things that are hard to stomach, and honestly, some things that make you, I don't want to say question God, but question, where is he at in this situation? And like, how are you good in this situation? Like, what do you, like, what good could come from this? And there might never be any good that comes from this. But since you've done that, 17 years ago, since y'all started that, obviously you've traveled the world speaking, y'all have done amazing things. Has there been anything that, a part of what y'all do that have made you at times wrestle with, with God, and like, how are you allowing such evil like this to happen?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are times where you look at situations. I was telling Christian about a case we had with an 18-month-old that was being sold for sex by her mother and stepfather. And you see that, and you see hundreds of girls being trafficked in other situations. And you wonder, where is God in letting that happen? Where's the sovereignty of, if God is sovereign, why does that happen? And I think I can't answer that as a macro question, but God's answer to me has been that I've equipped you and prepared you and your team to be able to help in those situations. I'm not. We live in a fallen world, and that's not my will that they are trafficked and that they are abused. But my will is that they be rescued, and that they get to see the love of God demonstrated, and that's why I've sent you. A21 is a secular organisation in that we're not a Christian organisation, but most of our team are Christians, and they show the love of God without sort of preaching it to people, because each person that we come across will always ask the question. It's like, I've been abused by a lot of people, and nobody's ever done it without a agenda. What's your agenda? And I can say to people, well, I just believe that God wants you to know that He wanted to protect you and help you in that situation. Mm-hmm. So that's the best answer I can give to a impossibly complicated question that I would love to. Yeah. I'd love to be able to know the ins and outs of the sovereignty of God and how that works with such tragedy. We've done work in Iraq and seen horrific situations, and seen stuff in Africa and Asia and the US where you look at it and you go, how does that happen, especially here in a great country like America? Mm-hmm. How can you get away with that? Yeah. And I believe God puts people in the way to try and interdict those situations, and then provide care and provide hope and provide ways for people to find a relationship with Jesus out of it.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, two things I want to end on real quick before we wrap it up. One, so people that are hearing this, I hope that brings some conviction, because that does happen here. It's super prevalent here. It's like you said, 52 million people worldwide, more than ever in human history. That's just crazy to wrap your head around that, and it's hard to fathom. How can people understand? Like, do you have a web? I mean, I'm sure you have a website. I mean, how can people understand more about what y'all are doing, and even to donate or to give, or just to be aware of those things?
Yeah, the website is A21.org, and there's a whole bunch of things on there. There's videos about some of our prevention campaigns called Can You See Me? There's obviously ways to give. There's also a list of 21 things that you can do today in your world, in your environment, so that you can be effective to stop it in your world. I'm not sure when this podcast is going to air, but in October we've got our Walk for Freedom, and that'll happen in over 500 cities around the world. And you can go to the website, and we'd love you to be a part of that. That's just a walk where we highlight the presence of trafficking in all those different cities. And it's fantastic because it's very peaceful. The police love it, and it generates so much inquiry as to what's going on. I didn't realize there was trafficking in my community, and generates information back to the anti-trafficking hotlines.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, we spent the whole podcast talking about this, which is what I wanted to do. But you're also an adventure junkie, which I wanted to talk about that, but we ran out of time. But I just thought that was too deep of a conversation to kind of pivot into talking about mountain biking and other things. It was just too deep. What's your next adventure you have coming up? And I want to have you back on the podcast because you've done so many just crazy things throughout the world, from, like you said, just from an adventure and just from a fun standpoint. So what's your next thing that you have coming up?
I'm doing the Cape Epic mountain bike race in South Africa in March next year. So it'll be it's a 500-mile mountain bike race over 8 days with an average of 60 miles a day and 10,000 feet of vertical climbing through some amazingly harsh and tough territory. So it's going to be fun.
I'm gonna have to join you on one of these one day. I don't know if I'll make the one in next March, but at some point I'm gonna come on with you.
It'll be fun. You'd love it.
I would love it. I would love.
You'd love the challenge.
I would love that. It's great, man. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was awesome. If you listen to this, and like you said, I hope that just all the things we talked about just compelled you and just spurred something in you. So visit a21.org and just find out more about it and see how you can donate, how you can give, and how you can be a part of it in any way, because it is super prevalent in our world. And I'm just grateful that, Nick, you're able to join me. And where we're at now, like I said, it's LO conference. So now we're about to go out into the woods and do some four-wheeling and maybe go shoot some guns, shoot some skeet, and do some redneck things. So you're from Australia. I'm not from here, but I'm going to try to show you how to have a good time in Louisiana.
I'm going to learn to be a redneck.
You're going to learn to be a redneck.
I'm going to let my inner redneck out.
Christine's going to love it. We're going to send her pictures of you holding up a dead snake at some point today.
That'll be fun. She may not let me back into the house.
Well, man, thanks for joining me.
A pleasure. Thank you for the privilege and the honor of being here.
Yeah.